This is the program that shows you the side of police chase videos they didn't want you to see. Bungled arrests, kamikaze crooks, and cop-based carnage of all kinds. Welcome to Cops Uncut, the real car crash TV.
On my way.
Coming up in Cops Uncut. A rubbish runaway gets rumbled. A beautiful blonde proves a handful for the highway patrol. And a lorry's questionable cargo comes a cropper.
260 at the corner. On my way.
Rain. We Brits are used to it. But across the pond, the Yanks just haven't got the hang of it. Rain and American roads are a recipe for disaster. Throw in a sprig of chaos-causing cops and a generous helping of previous roadside incident, and you can be sure there's a full meal of mayhem waiting to be served up. And here it is. Look a bit more closely, and there's more at stake than a good main course. A tow truck has been sent to pick up this white car, and the truck driver is standing between the car and the rail, right in the firing line. But his quick reflexes save the day, and by a miracle, he managed to leap the barrier and roll down the hill. He's still alive and gets up straight away to clamber up the bank. The SUV driver was lucky too, as he only clipped the side of the parked car rather than hitting it full on. He too was unscathed. Time now to send for a fleet of tow trucks to remove the tow truck, and hopefully those tow trucks won't need tow trucks too. Because of their long antisocial working hours, cops don't get to go out much, so they have to take every opportunity to meet new friends. That's why when this eagle-eyed Ohio officer noticed that his drink-driving suspect is a lady,
Female on his car.
he really wants to make a good first impression. So he puts on his best cowboy swagger as he approaches her car, resting one hand casually on the hilt of his gun for added effect. Let's just hope the uniform does it for her.
Turn your car off, ma'am.
Because his chat-up lines certainly won't.
Please don't stop me because you're driving all over the world, ma'am. How much alcohol have you had to drink?
Understandably curious as to his blind date's appearance, the cop leans in for a closer look. Pleased with what he sees, he goes to plan the next move in his charm offensive.
Where do you work at, ma'am?
But quickly moves on to a questioning technique he's more comfortable with.
Why don't you give me your driver's license, okay? I want to see your driver's license. We'll go from there, okay?
I know, but take my license, take my whole car.
Come on, hop out of the car.
He turns to his old favorite, the drink-driving routine.
Yeah, how much alcohol have you had to drink? You've had too much,
No,
ma'am.
I haven't.
You've had one
He decides to take his new girlfriend back to his place.
Okay, come back here with me, okay?
But it's clear she's not fully in control of her faculties.
Come on, come over here. Huh? What? We'll talk to me. That's what I want to...
Maybe all she needs is a nice lie down.
Come on, Laura.
No.
Eventually, he manages to prop the woman up on his bonnet.
You gotta be honest with me, okay? Are you taking any medication or anything like that?
But in the process, he's also managed to make her cry. So he tries to cheer her up with a few drunk tests.
Let's go check her out. We'll go from there, okay?
She seems content to prove her sobriety, or lack of it, the old-fashioned way.
I'm not gonna
We'll
fall.
stay right there, okay? Yes, you are.
Determined to win her heart, the officer demonstrates his dance moves. And then shows off his expensive gold-plated pen.
You see the end of my pen right here? Forward your eyes, okay?
For a brief second, it looks like he's pulled.
Yo, you married?
I will.
This cop almost cops off with his suspect,
No, don't hug me.
but he seems to suddenly get cold feet and ends up reducing Goldilocks to tears once more. At which point the spurned lover slides back to the ground, and when she tries to lie her way out of the whole embarrassing mess,
I don't drink.
Okay.
it's clear that romance is well and truly dead. Still to come, he's brought the burgers, but it's not a barbecue. And it's straight to hospital for these hoodlums. We've seen some pretty lousy getaway attempts here on Cops Uncut, but this one has to go down as one of the very worst. Police are chasing this guy after earlier reports of a shooting. The suspect could be extremely dangerous. But by the way that he appears to be waving at the police through his sunroof, it's much more likely that he's just a bit of a nutter. If he'd kept his attention on the road, he might have avoided smashing into another car. Perhaps those dark sunglasses are the problem. Because when this fashion victim runs face first into a street sign, it's obvious he hasn't got a clue where he's going. The cops arrive brandishing their guns, but they probably won't need them. This Gumby is just the sort of crook who'd walk straight into a jail cell if you left the door open. Either way, the cops take the suspect down behind the bushes, while the helicopter thoughtfully pulls out to give them a little privacy. The future's not bright for this clueless crim, but he keeps those shades on all the same, just so that he can look cool even when he's packed into the back of a cruiser and carted off to Chokey. After getting in a flap, crashing his car and ignoring all the signs, this crook doesn't look cool at all. He just looks like a pillock. Police Academy Lesson 2001, Car Chases. The most important thing about car chases is they're supposed to take place in cars. Rule number 1 is that you engage the suspect using the squad car you've been given. Trying to chase a car on foot just isn't going to get anyone anywhere. So get behind that wheel and put your foot down. Much better. Now all you have to do is keep following the suspect, no matter where he or she might lead you. Along the way, keep an eye out for things like trees and other cars, because colliding with these things could bring the chase to a swift end. If there are lots of cars chasing the same vehicle, an alternative strategy would be to skulk around towards the back of the group and try not to be noticed. That way you can let someone else take care of all that messy ramming business. And just sit and watch through your windscreen as one of your more naturally assertive colleagues gets stuck into the whole arrest procedure. So to recap, the car chase is a fusion between the concepts of the car and the chase, hence the name. So save your fancy footwork and just put the pedal to the metal. Class dismissed. Still to come on Cops Uncut. 2 kids head for the mall, and 2 crooks head for the houses. Reports are in of a domestic fire in this Ohio suburb, and this policeman is on his way to investigate, but it's already past dinner time. And the officer seems pretty keen on getting the job over as quickly as possible so that he can demolish another tasty burger. With food almost certainly at the front of his mind, Ohio's largest, hungriest cop thunders off in the direction of the blaze as fast as his fat legs can carry him. Perhaps he's hoping that the garden-based blaze is a very big barbecue. But he's in for a big disappointment, as there isn't so much as a sesame seed bap in sight. Other, slightly less enormous cops arrive and get on with the job of actually trying to do something about the fire. In fact, this is the scene of a very unfortunate accident caused by somebody crashing into a truck that was parked in this driveway. Both vehicles flipped over and burst into flames. Not only is the inferno just a few feet from these homes, but the driver is still trapped inside. So while his colleagues bravely make a fiery rescue attempt, our butterball Bobby bounds back to his car, most likely in search of a tasty marshmallow or two to toast on the flames. Later, two more lardy law enforcers arrive, attracted by the smell of flame-grilled goodness in the cool night air. But they're much too late. By the time they get there, the fire's out, the victim has been saved, and the barbecue is well and truly over. It's not often that a criminal admits he's got a problem, but after committing aggravated assault on a Texas trooper and then being caught speeding, it's clear the driver of this car could do with some therapy. Perhaps that's why he's leading the police directly to the hospital.
This is going to be Methodist Hospital that we're pulling into right now.
The driver legs it into the building with the boys in blue not far behind, ready to give him a little intensive care of their own. But everyone seems to have forgotten to check whether or not there's anyone else in the car. That job's left to this lady, a nurse from the hospital on a break. Sure enough, another crook tumbles out of the back of the car, followed by one more from the front passenger side. Keen to discuss what's going on, they make no attempt to flee. When the camera pulls out, we can see why. By now, there are no less than 7 squad cars surrounding the hospital. Understandably, the suspects prefer their chances with a nice, friendly lady. But some old friends return to take over wet nurse duty. Both these guys and the runaway driver are later charged with a number of felonies, including possession of drugs, although not, of course, the sort of pharmaceuticals you're likely to find in a hospital.
260 at the corner. On my way.
Disneyland is as American as, well, obesity. But the lure of Walt Disney's World of Wonders is so strong that some kids will even resort to crime to get there.
Just north of Disneyland.
These two teens have stolen a van and driven halfway across the state.
And it looks as though he's pulled into this hotel here. Wonder if he's going to get out at this time.
But the police have been on their tail all day.
Looks as though he got out and left the engine running. He ran into the front of the lobby of this building.
The hotel might provide a temporary refuge. But the cops are closing in, and it's only a matter of time before the young felons are caught.
The police officers are starting to surround the building.
Sure enough, capturing the two boys is child's play.
In gear, and it looked as though it inched forward and into the side of the building.
The youths, whose faces aren't quite as blurry as this in real life, are taken away for questioning. Later, one of the children tries to claim that they stole the van in order to visit his grandma. But since the old lady in question is dead and the kids get caught at the Holiday Inn Disneyland, the cops smell a rat, or rather a mouse, called Mickey. Driving on American roads can be a bit of a lottery. Tonight in Minneapolis, however, it's a rollover. In slow motion, it's easier to see what happened. The car here has stalled bang in the middle of the rush hour traffic. But obviously the guy in this car here hasn't seen it, which is why he treats the guy in the third car to some entirely unnecessary rear-end action. This unwelcome thrust sends the victim's motor into the barrier, which tips the car over. By a miracle, the driver manages to avoid hitting anyone else. In fact, it's not until the emergency services show up that the roads start looking really bad. Still to come, a chase takes an unexpected turn, and a fleeing felon gets into a tight squeeze.
260 at the corner. On my way.
A crisp, icy Utah afternoon, and reports are in of a car thief in the area. But a West Jordan Police Department patrolman thinks he might have just traced the bloke to the stolen white van ahead. Sometimes it's hard to get into the mindset of a criminal, but in this instance it's just utterly baffling as to why anyone would want to nick a thing like this. OK, so it's got a roof rack and comes with a free ladder, but surely there can't be much of a market for old, knocked-off painters and decorators vans. Undeterred by the financial impracticalities of this endeavour, the van driver continues trying to escape. The chase continues through the bleak residential landscape of the American backwaters, occasionally punctuated by the odd hair-raising near miss. There's plenty of driving on the wrong side of the road, and even a near rear-ender or two. Sadly, all the cops' efforts to stop the car fail miserably. At one point, it looks like the officer is about to live with the embarrassment of losing his suspect altogether. And it's not until the crook steers his van off-road through the snow and plows into a fire hydrant that the chase is finally over. Car thief and accomplice ditch their wreck and head off into the icy tundra on foot, perhaps in search of a hearse, a golf cart, or some other mildly inappropriate thing to steal. Police Academy Lesson 35, Drug Smugglers. As a policeman in a coastal town, you'll often come across drug smugglers trying to import their wares into the US from overseas. So if you need to chase one down a river, across the sea, or down an extremely wet road, you should consider swapping your cruiser for a boat. Boat chases work in a similar way to other pursuits, except that they're not as fast or exciting, a bit like the film Speed 2. Many of the police intervention techniques used on dry land, however, are completely ineffective when you're in the drink. The spike strip, for example, is a lot less useful in a maritime situation, not just because the Stinger has a tendency to sink, but also because most boats don't have tyres. You can't simply ram your suspect off the road either, mainly because there aren't any roads. But your tiny little police-issue speedboat wouldn't make much of a dent anyway. Sometimes it's a whole lot safer and easier to leave the whole boat thing to people who spend their lives on the ocean. Like the Navy. With bigger boats and plenty of seamen, they're a lot better equipped to cope with things like large-scale drug smuggling. These bundles contain a $165 million stash of Colombian cocaine seized by the crew of the USS Callahan off the Californian coast. If you make a big catch like this, it's always worth taking a few snaps to remember the occasion by, before the drugs are either destroyed or siphoned back onto the streets by crooked cops. So if the way forward looks wet, it's all aboard for a boat chase. But if your puny police dinghy just isn't making any waves, then why not get those nice boys in the Navy to do it for you? Class dismissed. Still to come. Squad cars do a bit of suspect squashing. Taking off again. Drugs are big business and everyone wants a piece of the action, including the driver of this lorry who, according to undercover cops, is hauling something a little more serious than Smarties. But the police have obviously forgotten that when a cop chase involves something slightly larger than your average sedan, you need to be a bit careful. This officer, for instance, has managed to break several bones trying to board the lorry while it was moving. And it looks like one of his colleagues has got a bit too carried away with the spike stick. Perhaps blowing out the enormous semi-articulated lorry's tyres wasn't the best idea. The overzealous officer's actions have caused so much carnage that news crews come from far and wide for a closer look at the blundering Bobby's great big boob. Through some quirk of fate, the driver of the lorry has survived the whole experience untouched. But what about all those drugs? Well, rather than looking in the obvious place, the back of the lorry, This generously proportioned cop appears to have decided that poking around in the suspect's glove compartment for travel sweets is much more important. And given the size of his backside, we reckon it's probably safe to suggest that when it comes to food, this policeman is probably a finders keepers, losers weepers kind of guy. Up in a helicopter, you get a lovely view of police chases.
Eastbound turn, eastbound turn.
But occasionally the accompanying commentary from the cameraman can be just plain annoying.
Whoa, did he hit that van?
It's quite obvious he didn't hit it.
Van, did he hit him?
No, not even vaguely.
Just barely.
No!
Almost hit that van, almost hit that van.
That's better. In fact, the guy in this LA chopper is probably the only person in the world who could get excited about the police actually pulling back from a chase.
The police officers are backing off rather dramatically.
To spice things up, he resorts to inventing things.
People jumping out of the way, as you can see.
If you can see anybody jumping out of the way, do write in and let us know. But just when the cameraman's cringeworthy commentary reaches the peak of banality,
The good news here is there's not much traffic on the street.
the chase comes to the rescue by suddenly getting a whole lot more interesting. The cop wedges the suspect to the curb with his cruiser, and when the crook tries to escape, he runs nose first into another cop car in front.
There we go, a traffic accident right there with the police officers. The person's still trying to get away. This person's going to continue to try and ram the officers.
In fact, when the camera pulls out, we can see that the person is completely boxed in.
This person is completely boxed in.
And the copter commentator says something we all agree with at last.
260 at the corner. On my way.
And with that, Cops Uncut is spent for another day. Let's take another look at the money shots. A couple on the run headed for a hotel. A beautiful blonde had a sherry too many. Running away proved more complicated than staying for this felon. Playing with food was not on the menu for the lardy lawmen tonight. And a big group proved claustrophobic for this robber on the run. Be careful out there.